When I was growing up in this valley, my parents had delivered to our home the Salt Lake Tribune. Back then, you didn't have the internet or the 24-hour news channels on cable TV, so the only way to stay informed was through the daily newspaper. And the paper of choice in our household was the Salt Lake Tribune. Dad refused to get the Deseret News for obvious reasons. And Dad would read the paper in the morning. He was an early riser, and Mom would read it in the evening. And we kids would read it throughout the day. And the one section of the paper that I read faithfully was, of course, the sports page. I would check the box scores and read the columns. Back then there was no ESPN or Golf Channel, no Fox Sports. My goodness, how did we ever survive? But we did. But the other section that I never missed was, of course, the comics. And the one cartoon strip that I read faithfully was Peanuts, written by Charles Schulz. And what made his comic strip so good is that he had characters for everyone. Everyone could identify with either Charlie Brown, Lucy, or Linus. There was Snoopy the dog and Pigpen and Peppermint Patty and Schroeder. But the other thing that I liked was that his comic strip not only contained humor, but at times a good moral lesson, and in some cases biblical wisdom. Schulz was a committed Christian. And one occasion in his cartoon strip, Lucy and Linus are looking out the window at the pouring rain. It's just coming down in buckets. And Lucy says, "Boy, look at that rain. What if it floods the whole world?" And Linus calmly and confidently says, "It will never do that. In the 9th chapter of Genesis, God promised Noah that would never happen again. And the sign of the promise is the rainbow." Lucy has a look of absolute sincerity and gratitude and says, "You've taken a great load off my mind." And Linus responds and says, "Sound theology has a way of doing that." Chances are good that in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, we've all had a lot on our mind, a lot of things that are of concern, and with good reason. And what we need is a good, healthy dose of sound theology. Last week, I tried to do that in a video post that I sent out on the providence of God, and hopefully you've watched it. And if you haven't done so, I'd urge you to do so. But in addition to sound theology, we also need to be spending some time in earnest, heartfelt, repentant prayers, where we as Christians confess not only our personal sins, but the sins of our nation. I believe that what is going to get us through this mess is the prayers of faithful Christians. Not sure if you saw it, but last week an op-ed in the New York Times blamed evangelical Christians for paving the road to, quote, the coronavirus hell. Because Christians are science deniers. We're a bunch of non-thinking morons who don't know which way the wind is blowing. Beloved, I believe that what is going to get us through this difficult time is the fervent, effectual prayers of righteous people around the world. And when you and I begin to pray as we've never prayed before, God is going to open the windows of heaven and he's going to bring healing and deliverance. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land." And so until this situation is resolved, we're going to pray. And we're not just going to pray during this difficult time. We're also going to pray continuously. In just a moment, we're going to have various slides appear on the screen. And I want you to pray for these requests. It may be that you're going to want to spend more time on one request than another, and you can do that by simply hitting the pause button and then praying for that request longer. It may be that you have a prayer request you'd like us to pray for. So if you do, just contact us and we'll be sure and include them. But for now, I want to encourage us to go to prayer. And we'll meet again on Tuesday night, again at 7 o'clock. God bless you as you pray.